All right. Okay, fantastic. Welcome, everybody. So if you don't know me, I'm Valerie Sayer of Nutrition Connection Balance, and I am so excited tonight to be with everybody and grateful to have you here to really help us empower people. We've got Dr. William Sears, we call him Dr. Bill usually, and we'll see what he wants us to call him tonight. But we're just delighted. We're going to really start tonight and be talking about toxins and different things to be aware of. And Dr. Sears and I talked about this before we do an official introduction, as we want to make sure that you know that we're here because we want to foster awareness around toxins and cancer and make sure we encourage you to stand up and not dwell on any negatives and really be able to focus on what you can do. And there's so many specific tools, habits, lifestyle changes that you do have control over. So just wanted to proceed by saying that before I introduce Dr. Sears. Dr. Bill is a medical doctor and pediatrician. He's a husband and dad of 8. I know some of you have seen him, and if you haven't, you're going to be stunned and delighted. He's an author of 47 books. Every one of them is good. Every time I read one, I say it's better than the last. So he's certainly somehow managed to get better with everyone in age. So that's a pretty miraculous feat, I'll tell you. And his newest book is out on October 4th. I read it cover to cover in 2 days. It was fantastic and helpful. And I think it's got to be because partly you're a pediatrician. You just seem to take hard information and not make it like a kid's reading it, but you really get to sink your teeth into the information. And if you don't know me, I'm a registered and licensed dietitian. I keep my pharmacy technician license up. I'm the owner of Nutrition Connection Balance. I'm a mom of 5, and I'm really passionate, like Dr. Sears, about education. So Dr. Sears, welcome. Thank you for being with us tonight. Can you tell us why?
Thank you, Valerie. It's wonderful to be with you. You know, we're just big kids anyway.
Isn't that the truth? I keep trying to get back to that. That's where I used to be silly, and I'm getting better at it again. So thank you for that. But why don't we start out? Why this book? What inspired you to write another book, and why?
Well, Valerie, what inspired me is because there's a huge gap in cancer education. So let's imagine you go in for your annual checkup, and you have some tests, and you get a call, that dreaded call from your doctor. It says, Valerie, I'm sorry, but you have cancer. Now, the first thing that comes in your mind is the fear, pardon me, the fear factor. Oh my gosh. Well, how did I get this? Why me? All that stuff. And then the doctor says, now we're going to schedule you an appointment for what we're going to do for you, surgery, chemo, and radiation. But in your mind is, doctor, what can I do to help myself heal? What can I do? So this book was an imaginary book that the doctor would say to you, Valerie, before our appointment, I want you to equip yourself and empower yourself with all the tools to help yourself heal. And I want you to know how to help me help you heal.
Well,
so that's why we wrote the book. And also we have unfortunately a lot of this book was written on the job. We have 5 cancers in our family: brain, bone, blood, breast, and colon. So we learned a lot on the job.
I imagine you have. And I think, most of us have experienced cancer or know someone that we love with cancer, and weave in those stories as we go. And what's nice, Dr. Sears, is, one of the things too, that I know you are very, very humble, is that you're also donating proceeds and books to the UCI Cancer Center. And so, again, not only will you all learn, but again, it's a lot of things is going for a good cause. So we're really excited and amazed that you do that. So thank you. But tell us a little bit, and it's really hard, right? But that's why we're going to do this in part 1 and part 2. But why don't you share a little bit about the preventing and healing from cancer? Because that's where that empowerment comes in, right?
Yes, and viewers, pay close attention, because we're going to go through each one of these tips. We're going to show you how to make health your hobby. The first thing you're going to learn is what we call the belief effect. The better you believe you will heal, the more likely you will heal. Stay lean. Stay lean. The 2 biggest, smartest words in cancer prevention and healing is stay lean. Then we're going to learn how to live clean and eat clean. Valerie's going to take us deep inside our environment to show you what to stay away from, what's on the naughty list, why movement mobilizes your conquer cancer army inside. Sleep cancer away. We're going to show you how to be a better partner with your doctor. You're not a patient, you're a partner. And when you talk to your oncologist and they start throwing out all these scary statistics, like you have a 20% chance of, I would say, doctor, I am a person, not a percentage. Please don't scare me with those percentages. So right away, you've taught your doctor how to be a wiser doctor. I want you to learn how to consult a toxicologist, which Valerie will talk about, how to journal your progress, and how to build your Conquer Cancer library. So that's what we're going to go through.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we're gonna touch on all of these, and certainly it'll help you really, again, feel that empowerment. And as Dr. Sears says, be that partner.
Yes.
Yeah. And what about this part of believe you will heal? Because I'm definitely an optimistic person and a positive person, but not everybody, has that. And some people have a lot of fear factor and worry.
And Valerie, that the term belief effect, that's how our book starts.
Yeah.
Because believe you will heal. And there's a brain, what we talk in our brain book, where attention flows, brain tissue grows.
Yeah.
Which means that you focus on not the problem inside of you, your cancer, but the solution inside of you, your Conquer Cancer army. So you grow your Conquer Cancer center in your brain. The tissue grows by putting the attention into your brain that you want it to grow. And we've known all along that positivity promotes longevity in every ailment. Optimists heal better than pessimists. And all of this finding has led to a long overdue and fantastic part of cancer healing, and it's called psycho-oncology. And we're going to talk about that.
Yeah. And that's another big word that, again, we break down and becomes so meaningful, in our life. And I love the whole thing where attention flows, the brain tissue grows, because we teach that with anything. If you want to learn to play the piano, you focus on piano and you read music and you listen to piano music. If you're running a marathon, you participate with other marathon runners, right? So it just makes so much sense, including when we're worried and trying to make sure we are, again, conquering those things. So, I love how you talk about the preloading of that immune system army. So talk to us a little bit what that means.
Yes, preloading. Preload means to prepare your body and brain to prevent cancer when it comes, to fight cancer when it comes. Preload to prepare. And the brain, we call the brain the chief preloading officer, because cancer healing, Valerie, begins in the brain.
Yeah.
And here's why. The brain sends text messages, biochemical text messages, to your immune system army inside, called your ISA. And the chief troops, the fighters, are called NK cells, natural killer cells. And trillions of them patrol your body, and they go on search and destroy missions. And when they see a cancer cell, just like the picture shows, and with kids, I tell them they look like little Pac-Men. All right, they do. So when a cancer cell comes near, or when the NK cell searches out a cancer cell, it is attracted to it by magnetism, and it gloms onto the cancer cell and fires a biochemical dart into the cancer cell and blows it up. Now, Valerie, right now, you and I and everyone viewing is having their cancer cells blown up by their NK cells, and you don't get cancer.
Yeah.
You get cancer when the NK cells are overpowered by the cancer cells. And that's Cancer Prevention 101, to empower your NK cells. And the first way you do it is by belief effect.
Yeah.
And this is a great mystery, but here's how I think it happens. The brain sends biochemical text messages to the NK cells. Says, hey, you down there, we believe in you. Now go fight for me.
Yeah.
Go fight for me.
Yeah.
And then, like any troops, the better you feed them, the better they fight for you. So we're going to learn about smart foods for cancer prevention, science-based supplements, also movement. You're going to learn how movement mobilizes your immune system.
Yeah.
Ah,
That's a big one, right? I mean, the movement is, I call it sitting disease. I think you even had that in your book. Might not have been the exact words, but and that's been a challenge. It's a challenge for all of us when we're in a career.
Oh, it is. And I say that every day in my office and when I'm with patients. I say, Joe, you suffer from the sitting disease.
Yes.
Say, what? Wow.
Yeah. But it makes sense, right? Because this movement is so important.
Yeah. So let's go deeper into your body, Valerie. And just imagine you were the architect of the greatest machine ever made, your beautiful body.
Yeah.
But you knew that because we mere humans, by the way we eat and we live and think, we're going to mess it up.
Yeah.
So to protect that beautiful body, you're going to put in that body its own immune system police force to travel around and clean up your mess.
Yes.
To make all the stuff you clutter your body with, to get rid of it. Yeah. So let me think for a minute, our viewers. If you were putting that army inside your body to get into the bloodstream the quickest, to clean up your mess, where would you put it? We call this a ponder pause. Think for a minute. Where would I put my immune system army, the trillions of fighters, if I wanted them to go fight for me real quickly? You'd put them in the lining of your blood vessels. Yes. It's called the endothelium. And there's a picture of two cancer healers, or cancer preventers even. We have Mandy the mover, and we have Sam the sitter. And notice, with Mandy, the NK cells, your millions and trillions of fighter cells, they are mobilized. It's called demarginating. And here's what happens. This actually won the Nobel Prize. A friend of mine, Dr. Luigno, taught me this. But when you move, the blood flows faster across the lining of your blood vessels, called the endothelium. And that creates a shear force that literally opens medicine bottles, and it gets the white blood cells moving. It's like the blood flows so fast when you're exercising, the blood comes along, grabs the immune cells, the NK cells, says, hey, fighters, come on, join me, and let's travel around the body and clean up the mess, especially cancer cells. Yep. Now, in other words, the better you're fit, the more fit you are, the better your immune system is fit. And it's called demarginating. Basically, you're moving your white blood cells. Now, here we have Sam the sitter. Movement mobilizes, sitting stagnates. I want you all to remember that. Here we have Sam the sitter. Sam's put sticky stuff in his mouth. He gets sticky stuff on the lining of his blood vessels. There's little blood flow to mobilizing the white blood cells, and the white blood cells are stuck. And this actually goes by, it's called a white blood cell wipeout.
Yes.
And which we'll talk about later. The food he's putting in his mouth are making the white blood cells lazy so they don't fight, and the lack of blood flow doesn't mobilize them. So
Yeah.
this is getting in deeply inside your body and showing you why movement mobilizes your immune system.
Yeah, well, we want to be like Mandy, that's for sure. And you know, the beautiful part about that is that we get to choose. I mean, that's where, again, that choice comes in, where we get to empower ourselves, right? To do that.
Yes.
So that's the good part again. So
yeah, and here's, you want to have some fun tomorrow.
yeah.
Say you're out walking with friends, and you're walking fast. It says, "I'm mobilizing my Conquer Cancer Army." And we're going to look at you, and you say, "I'm making my NK cells fight smarter."
That's right. Right.
and here's just a little funny. And now for the viewers, if you want to watch a riveting video, a
Yes.
7-minute video
Yes.
on Nobel Prize winning research in animation and fun, go to askdrsears.com/endothelial pharmacy, and it's a very riveting video on taking you into your immune system, into your blood vessels in animation, and showing them how your immune system fights for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, the other thing is, you have another video also, even with Primetime Health, that's just so helpful to see that person walking through the endothelial lining, and seeing all those NK cells, and Mandy, that's moving. And so it just makes it very fun, like you said, so you can, and even like you said, when walking, repeating some of these things, mantras keep your mind clear.
They do. And
Yes.
you'll notice, Valerie, that on the slides, the ladies are the healthy ones and the gentlemen aren't. That's done for political reasons.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that little bit of faith, extra faith. And I think, a lot of times women just sometimes are more in charge of the shopping and that type of thing. So we'll give you credit, because we know you're doing your part, that's for sure. And that comes in with the eating, right? So tell us a little bit about this part, because this is very important.
Yes. Now, the foods you eat, we call it a conquer cancer diet. I like the term conquer cancer because it's an empowering term. We don't say cure, because that's often a promise you can't deliver on. But we can conquer cancer. We all can conquer cancer, meaning we can live with it. We can beat it. We can, I don't like the term even fight, because that's a fear factor, but we can conquer cancer. And one of the ways you do it is, I call our Conquer Cancer diet. And we have a whole list of conquer cancer foods in our book. But in a nutshell, somebody says, "What diet should I eat?" We call it a smart fat, smart carb diet. Smart fat, smart carb.
Yeah.
When the low fat diet craze hit, the sugar rates went up because they took the fat out of good foods and put sugar in, and diabetes went up. They took the sugar out, and we all got fatter. See, so it's smart fat, smart carbs.
Yes.
Now, low in added sugars, certified organic. You're worth it. You say, "Dr. Billick, organic foods cost a lot." Yeah, but so does cancer.
Yes, exactly.
You're worth it. And my wife is very frugal. She's from a farm, and I'm preaching at her about please, eat organic, honey, but that's so expensive. Say, "Honey, you're worth it. You're worth it."
That's
and
right.
the reason why we stress food, Valerie, is you see the healthy cell there.
Yes.
Every organ in the body is only as healthy as the blood flow to it, which is movement,
Right.
And every organ of the body is only as healthy as every cell in it.
Yes.
And next, every cell is only as healthy as the membrane surrounding the cell, that little dark wavy membrane.
Yep.
The membrane is called selective and protective. It
Mhm.
means it selects the nutrients that they need for growth, and they protect the cell from toxins that you're going to talk about later
Mhm.
that don't belong there. And
Yes.
what is the best way to keep your cell membrane healthy? You feed it good, healthy foods.
Yes.
So that's what's going on in your body when you eat healthy.
Yeah. And we can't undermine the importance of that food. You know, when I decided to be a registered dietitian, part of that reason was because I always said one of the only things you're going to do your whole life is eat.
Mhm.
Why not learn how to do it better? Why not learn, like you said, to do the right things so that you
Yep.
can have this on your side, right?
Exactly. And what you just said too, and you want to feed your immune system army. And this is something I tell all my patients and friends. Again, where attention flows, brain tissue grows. I want you to dwell on your immune system army inside of you, which you can control. One of the ways is what you eat, rather than fearing your cancer inside of you, which you often can't control.
Yes. Yeah. And that looks like the salad we had for dinner tonight. So we did good.
Salmon and salads.
That's right. It was a good one. Yes. Full
Ah,
of vegetables and leafy greens.
yep.
Yeah. And what about the foods that we should be eating less of and hopefully eventually avoiding as much as possible?
Oh, the naughty list.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guessed it.
Yeah.
Sugar, highly processed foods where they've taken all the fiber out and added sugars and added sweeteners and chemical enhancers
Yeah.
in order to prompt you to eat more. And if the cancer cell could talk, it does, but we don't listen. It would say, there's a cancer cell down on the left. It says, hey, I love sugar spikes.
Yeah.
My grow food, sweetie cola. Wow, my grow food. So
Yeah.
sometimes I tell my patients, hang little, we have little, what we call healthy reminders, which you can go to our website and just click in healthy reminders.
Yeah.
And have a lot of these pictures, and you put them up in your in your bathroom mirror or the fridge or any place you're going to eat or sleep or be a lot in, just as a reminder. Oh, okay, I got it. All
Yeah.
right, sugar's my grow food. That's the cancer. I don't want that.
Yeah, yeah, we sure don't. And certainly, you know, as people learn, even, you know, even a lot of times people talk to me about how addicting it is. And I said it is. That's why, like you said, that sugar spike creates more hunger. You want more and more. So just you, even if you can't cut it out, start reducing it and reading labels and eating more whole food. It does get easier, doesn't it?
Yes, it
Yeah,
does.
it does. I came from a family that ate desserts for breakfast. So it's taken a lot of reprogramming, you know? So as well as large meals. So I'm so glad when you included this particular slide. So let's talk
Mhm.
about this with the smaller meals and why.
Yeah, and again, I want you to remember this: the smaller your meal, the better you heal.
Yeah.
The smaller your meal, the better you heal.
Yeah.
Ponder that. Now let's meet two characters here: George the Gorger and Gracie the Grazer. Who do you think is more likely to get cancer? Obviously, George the Gorger. George put sticky stuff in his mouth, all the sugary cola, the sticky fries, the sticky stuff, fake foods. His brain gets inflamed, his heart gets inflamed, his gut gets inflamed, his joints get inflamed, and he has high level of sticky stuff and sugar in his bloodstream. And the cancer cells like it. Then we have Gracie the Grazer. Happy heart, happy brain, happy gut, happy joints. Because look, Gracie's eating with chopsticks. In fact, I gave this a talk like this over in Japan a few years ago, and they one of the nice doctors got up and asked me, Dr. Bill, why do Americans eat so much so fast?
Yeah.
She didn't want to go on and say, and get so much cancer, but that's what she's getting to.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, I have an idea. I think I'll go home and try to get a law passed against the use of forks. And we have to use chopsticks instead. I was kind of joking, but then, we tried that in our family. The kids love it.
Yeah.
The kids love it. They grab a little berry with their chopsticks and all that. So you want to have some fun, just try putting chopsticks instead of a fork down, especially if you have these little wolfers. I call them as kids, these wolfers. Give them chopsticks.
That's a great idea. I know even our adult children always save their chopsticks when we're out, and we have them in our drawer, and they will use them when they're here, which is very interesting. And I don't, so I'm going to have to try that. So we certainly know, again, that eating less and smaller meals is really more important.
And remember, fast carbs feed cancer.
Oh, if you could please make sure you mute yourself. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. And some other ways, you give a lot of wonderful tools in the book, and I love all the information about the smoothie. So tell us a little bit about why you incorporate them and why we should all incorporate them.
Well, back when I had my first cancer, Valerie, I realized I had to change my whole way of eating. I needed to eat more plant foods.
Yeah.
I needed to eat slowly. While my gut was healing from colon surgery, I call it my sipping solution.
Yeah.
And so I sipped on a smoothie. Yeah. And there is my smoothie. That picture was taken just a few months ago. This is a smoothie. And that little dealie on top, that little ball on top, is a fig, because I still have a sweet tooth. And the fig is wonderful because it's full of fiber. All right. And there, the kids tell you a little story in the hospital when I make a hospital rounds, and the nurses will say, hey, we hear a blender going. It must be one of Dr. Sears's patients, because I have mom and dad come in and with their blender and give them the smoothie. And the kids, I hear all the time, my smoothie is my smoothie. That's how they remember it.
Oh my gosh. And it makes me think about when I did my medical internship at the Cleveland Clinic, I would make smoothies for my patients. And and the internship director said, we've never had anyone do that. I said, well, if I'm here to support their healing, I will make smoothies for them. And that was, in 1994.
Good for you.
So it's,
wow, you were ahead of the time too.
It was not very common back then. So it's so nice to see how far we've come. And you can see all those beautiful colors that Dr. Sears has in his smoothie, with the kale and the beautiful reds and greens and yellows, and those colors really also make it flavorful, as you said. So that's really great. So now I know you mentioned a little bit about the staying lean as being one of the 2 words that are very important, and talk a little bit about that, because that's one that we all tend to struggle with, especially as we get older or when we have a bump in the road.
And one of the ways I start with, first of all, if you had to pick 2 words, the 2 top cancer prevention words and the 2 top cancer healing words, it would be stay lean. Now, lean, Valerie, doesn't mean skinny. Lean means having the right percentage of body fat for your particular body type. And that's why we don't do scale weights at all in the office. Because we talk body composition is more meaningful than body weight. We want you to gain muscle, gain bone, and lose extra fat. The more muscle you gain, the steadier your blood sugar. And the reason that we focus on what we call toxic waste is because several reasons. The carcinogens, the naughty stuff you're going to talk about, the toxins, are stored in belly fat. That's why we call it toxic waste. Secondly, the more excess belly fat you have, the higher your blood sugar is, which you don't want to have.
Yeah.
Secondly, your toxic waste is a storage bin for what we call pro-inflammatories. They're called cytokines. Pro-inflammatories are chemicals that circulate all over the body and stimulate the growth of cancer cells. Inflammation fuels cancer.
Right.
So this is why avoiding the toxic waste, and as my patients are leaving the office, I say, hey, Joe, next time we meet, I want to see less of you.
That's a good one. When we do our,
Oh.
I've been doing a monthly habit changers for about 2.5 years. And one of the things we teach is the same thing, body measurements and body fat, because a lot of people are also thin, but they're not active. And they also have higher body fat, and they're quite surprised.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we assess that. So body fat can also be hidden. So it is important to be looking, as Dr. Sears said, at the circumference as well as the body fat composition and percentage and muscle. So we know that one of the ways that we end up connecting more and more was on this particular issue. And so tell us just a little bit about how this, what Sprayed in America means, and certainly what it means to you and cancer.
Well, what this is, Valerie, is the cell in the middle. Remember, we talked about the cell membrane,
right,
being protective and selective. Well, it's called the cumulative effect. Day in and day out, the pesticides in the food we eat, the air we breathe, the plants that are sprayed, which you're going to talk about, a little bit each day, and the cell membrane gets worn down. And the cell says, enough already. I'm turning cancerous. See, the normal cell grows, multiplies, it keeps your body healthy. And when its job is over, it retires and makes room for healthier and younger cells. But a cancer cell doesn't retire. It keeps growing and invading.
yeah.
So so one of the first things you can do is stop spraying in America.
Yeah, as well as reading those labels, right, for those fake
Oh,
ingredients,
yeah.
even in yogurt and things like that. That's why
Yeah.
the whole foods, as we talk about, are going to be so
Right.
important.
And especially with children.
I know this is one that breaks both of our hearts, and that's what we're so passionate about, this education. And
yeah.
but tell us a little bit, and I know you recently went to a conference, and we had a discussion about why children are getting more cancer, and help us understand this as parents and grandparents and neighbors and loved ones.
It brings tears to my eyes, Valerie.
Oh, I know
that our most precious natural resource are children. And one of the reasons we adults are on this earth is to protect them.
Right.
And we're not. Children are getting more and more cancers at younger and younger age. There used to be a phrase in medicine called adult onset diseases.
Yeah.
That phrase no longer exists in the doctor's dictionary because children are getting it. So why are children getting more cancer? One, their detox systems are more immature, meaning they need to be exposed to less toxins. Their blood-brain barrier, meaning the barrier that keeps the toxins out of our most precious organ, our brain, is more permeable. Growing cells are more vulnerable to toxins to turn cancer. Their gut microbiome, their pharmacy inside their gut, is immature. They eat more toxic foods. They breathe heavier, so they breathe more pollutants. They have more belly fat that stores toxins.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, the session I was attending, a wonderful conference, statistics show the increase in Ds, all those Ds, ADD, ADHD, OCD, all the Ds have increased in proportion to toxin exposure over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So we need to do something.
Yeah, and that's why we're having this evening together, is to keep understanding the pieces that you want to be paying attention to, and awareness, because
No.
if you're not aware, you just don't even know what's out there. And we know this pediatric brain and resilience summit you were at talked about some other facts. So I think these are
Sure.
really important for people to be aware of why
Yeah.
we're talking about them tonight.
Right, and these are the take-home points I learned from that conference. And what was interesting, Valerie,
Yeah.
I've been in practice 50 years. That's
Yeah.
50 years,
Mhm.
and just in the past few years is when good conferences, pediatric conferences, are getting up and saying, "Hey, we got to do something.
Yeah.
We got to do something." And this was the take-home points that they said every baby has the right to be born into an environment that does not cause chronic disease. And one speaker got up and just floored the audience when she talked about a study where they showed 80% of the infants tested in the study were positive for the #1 pesticide on the naughty list, glyphosate, which you're going to talk about.
Yes.
And they closed the conference with the take-home message: we have a global silent pandemic of neurotoxicity.
Yeah. Yeah. And we see that in so many things besides those D's you're talking about. You know, we know with mental and cognitive issues with adults and children, it's a
That's
very
right.
trying time with global
Yeah.
stress on top of that. So
Oh,
we've got to have that better diet. And of course, it's not just our children. What about
oh
our
yeah. Yeah,
seniors or our parents?
children are set up for cancer, and so are we seniors.
Yeah.
And these are the 6 reasons. You know, your immune system gets old, your belly fat increases, you have the cumulative effect, you eat a little bit. So the lesson to your younger viewers: preload your body to prevent cancer when you're young.
Yes.
You can heal and conquer cancer at any age, but
Yes.
it's a lot easier the younger you are and the quicker you start.
Yeah, that's for sure. And it kind of goes back to, again, you know, we see how we come full circle again when we're talking about these things. And when we talk about the glyphosate and cancers, tell us a little bit
Oh
about
boy.
this with
Well,
the
here's my
personal
quick
aspect.
story. Here's
Yeah.
my quick story.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about this when you get into the toxins,
Yeah.
Valerie, which I'm looking forward to hearing you talk about
Yeah.
them.
Thank you.
This was about 4.5 years ago. I was scheduled for my yearly checkup, and I said to my wife, "Honey, I'm feeling fine. I'm going to cancel my checkup. I don't need to go in." And she looked at me, and you know, when a woman looks at you with those disarming eyes, you just want to say, "Yes, dear." And she said, "Go, honey, go to your checkup." Well, we doctors marry nurses because we live longer. So I go in my checkup, I get a good checkup. "Oh, Bill, you're fine." I get a call from my doctor 2 days later. "Bill, sorry to report you have leukemia." So what? I'm a health nut. I'm doing all these things. How on earth? And so, and I only had leukemia, but it was 55% of my white blood cells were cancerous. 55%.
Yeah.
The good news is, after getting expert treatment and doing everything that's in the Help Yourself Heal Cancer book,
Mhm.
my white blood cells, my 55% white blood cells are now below 0.01%, meaning the cancer is conquered.
Yeah.
And but I had good medical care. But the last point I want to make is
Mm.
my the first oncologist I went to wanted to give me the strongest medicine. We call it hit hard and hope, the strongest chemotherapy. The second one wanted to give me also a new one. So I did my research. That's another take-home point. Do your research. Get
Yeah.
various opinions. The third one, I actually traced down Dr. Van Etten, who wrote the foreword for our cancer book. He
Mhm.
actually did some of the initial studies on the initial treatment for the cancer I had, called targeted therapy, where I pop a pill a day, and that pill circulates in my bloodstream and targets the chromosome abnormality that's causing my cancer my white cells get cancer. And he said, Bill, because you have preloaded yourself, we're going to go slow and start low.
Yeah.
Meaning we're going to use the mildest medicine that has the fewest side effects. And it's the same medicine I am still taking now after 4.5 years when my cancer is essentially conquered.
Yeah.
So thank you, Dr. Van Etten.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that, because I think, again, just like you said, there's things that, again, accumulate with age and so on, even when you've taken good care of yourself. And that's why it's so important to be aware of all the different factors. And it's certainly, that's where you've become aware of many more factors, especially with the toxicities in particular, and you've been a big advocate over food and care over the years. But again, we still have to look at so many different pieces. So it's important when we're talking about that, we look at specifically that, realizing that toxins are everywhere, right, Dr. Bill? They're in foods, they're in fruits and vegetables, they're especially in processed grains and cereals. They're in beverages, and they can be in wine and juice because of especially concentrated when things are broken down. And I think a few of the categories that people are not aware of are the lotions and perfumes. I call them the lotions and potions, because it just makes people be receptive and smile. It doesn't sound so, against something that you might not be aware of, and then of course we've got the environment that we can only control so much with our pollution, as well as other contaminants that can be in water from nearby processing plants or nuclear plants, or even construction. Even new construction in a home can leak different things. We were talking to, as an example there, when we moved into our home, my husband and I developed high arsenic. We'd never had arsenic before. We'd been testing for 20 years. And it was in the wood, and it was also in the spray that they sprayed for bugs inside. And they normally only do the outside, and we didn't know that.
Wow.
So he said, well, we wondered why they were having us spray inside. We're like, well, we didn't ask for that. We didn't know. So, again, if we hadn't been measuring, we might have had arsenic for years without being aware. So it can be in a lot of places, even when you're very proactive. And that's the goal of just the next few slides, is to bring some awareness in. So you understand when Dr. Bill says that, how can a pediatric urine have 80% glyphosate? It doesn't surprise me at all, because of what I've seen and what I've tested. And the reason that these toxins are important, and tonight in particular, we're talking about cancer, but it does also affect other illnesses as well as conditions and symptoms. And certainly when we look at Dr. Bill's resources, we're going to show you some of his books. I mean, they're all great. I've used them before I even knew Dr. Bill. And when I worked in a pediatric center, before I even had children, and was a lactation consultant. So I'm very aware of all the different things that we need to learn as a parent and as a person to take care of ourselves. And so these toxins contribute to all these different concerns and issues that we all are concerned about, whether it's ourselves, a neighbor, friend, or a loved one. So we're going to focus just a little bit on some of the toxins and where they're at, and try to keep it simple tonight. And again, we'll be expanding on another one, but sometimes people just think, well, that can't be, because I haven't heard of glyphosate. And glyphosate, here's one example, 2013. I tried to pick some things so that you can kind of hear again where it's not new information, it's just new where there's more awareness around it and we're detecting it. But the glyphosate here in particular induces human breast cell growth, and it changes by the estrogen receptors and how it affects those pathways. And that's why, again, as an example, where there's a lot of concern around breast cancer, especially in the United States. So this could be part of course, the issue. And when we look at that, and we're looking at glyphosate, trying to get the slide to go here. Sorry about that. Let's see if I can get it. Let's talk about what it is. Right, Dr. Bill, because I think, again, people, in fact, we just had some guests at our house during this hurricane here in Florida, and they said, well, what is glyphosate? When I was mentioning something on the counter that someone had brought. And, and I said, well, it's a weed killing herbicide. And we know that herbicides, when they're ingested by a human, by a pet, by people, it changes our enzymatic pathways. And we do know now even which pathways it affects. And, and it was really great, because the person that was visiting said, well, why do they use it? And I thought that was a good question again, right? Because you start to be curious, right? As Dr. Bill says, she must have a good membrane that's permeable and have some good fats, because she's asking more questions right away. And those enzymes are necessary for the plant as well as other organisms in the gut microbes to function. So when you inhibit them, then it changes that NK cells and other cells that Dr. Bill has been talking about. And so it is one example, because I think, again, sometimes when I talk to clinicians or physicians or oncologists, they're a little in disbelief, like, well, no, we know about it. That if you look at some of the statistics, the most common lawsuit for glyphosate is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And they show there's a 41% increased risk when glyphosate is in, which again is that herbicide. So there are direct facts and meta-analysis where they're looking at all the data, even in this 2019 article, that does show that that is a valid concern that we're looking at. And that way, if you know what it is, you can be more cognizant, and also why we're talking about the foods and what you can control and do. And the only reason I show these again is just to show that, again, how glyphosate affects illness. And so we know that there has been many lawsuits, and most of them have been for cancer, and they have won the lawsuits for men's cancer, female cancers, lymphoma, as well as even now they're showing, of course, damage to pets. And we're seeing that on pets, on their paws. We're seeing how many of you have had pets that have cancer. I mean, I know growing up, we never had any of that at all. At least when I was talking to my grandparents before they passed, we were talking about some of those things, and they just didn't use those things. One of the other things you want to be aware of is a lot of the lotions and potions, as I call it, and beauty aids and skin and dermatology things that maybe aren't as necessary, that we maybe from social media and not focusing on, again, the love and the community and all the beautiful things that we have in our world, from the nature to our body to our health, is that even in the lotions and some of the dermatological practical topical lotions, they're finding that even, for example, this one that lightens the skin in particular, increased skin cancer by 3 times. And so, and it's one near and dear to my heart, Dr. Bill. I know we hadn't discussed personally that, but I had developed a melanoma in 2018. And I went for a skin check because my husband had promised one of our children, because he's never put on sunscreen. He was an athlete. We've got moles, we've got sun damage. I've always put on sunscreen. And we went, and I said, well, I'll go with you. That's a good idea. We should do that as we're getting older. And they found a mole that had changed. And I got a call, as you said, and they said, we're very sorry, but it's melanoma. And so, and so I've gone through that also, having to look at what different things, ask the questions, got a second opinion, even should it be cut out? What are the things to do? And so, you want to know that awareness is really.
You mentioned awareness, Valerie. We have so much in common. That's how we met. I couldn't figure out why on earth I got my leukemia.
Yeah.
And a trigger was when I play golf every morning, and the ladies of the golf course were asking, there are three ladies here whose dogs got cancer on their paws.
That's right.
And then I started putting two to two together, that they started spraying in the morning to save money. At the same time, I was playing golf, and that's when I called you. Yes. Long story short, you did my urine test, and my glyphosate level was sky high.
Yeah.
I quit playing golf for 3 months, and my high glyphosate level went down to very low.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a unfortunate experience I had. Yeah.
And again, it's just, we don't know what we don't know. So we're all learning, and that's why we're sharing information and always educating. And it's one of my favorite things about our community is, again, that passion to make sure you know all the different things. And we love our pets too. And just as Dr. Bill said, it was awareness on someone on the golf course that started saying, hey, what's going on here? And we're seeing it in our pets. And it's the same because think about most of the feed that we're using for pets, they're grains that are sprayed with glyphosate again. It's no different than people, you know. So, you know, that's where that comes in, and that awareness of what glyphosate is, trying to keep that simple, and then really understanding how it affects us. But as Dr. Bill and I like to do, we like to always make sure we're focusing on what you can do.
Yeah.
Dr. Bill's talked about some of those things very, very thoroughly. I'm just going to go over briefly, just again, just so that you're clear about those things that you do get to control, right? And I know, Dr. Bill, do you guys have a tower garden? Do you grow a tower garden?
Yes, we do. I
Yeah.
go out and my grandkids come over like little
Yeah.
squirrels, and they nibble on it all day long. So
Yeah.
grow your own, because I know what goes into it. So
Yeah.
thanks for
Oh
mentioning
my
that.
gosh. Yeah, yeah. We're gonna talk about the tower garden a little bit, and you know, even just when we get to the 12, you know, the dirty dozen and the 15 clean, and most of them on the dirty dozen, you can grow in your tower garden and have that assurance that you're getting the right seeds and you're getting the right formulas and you're not getting glyphosate. We certainly want a strong foundation. You know, Dr. Bill's done a wonderful job. I'm talking about the nutrition and the smoothies, and he goes through wonderful, very succinct, accurate, helpful in the book. And we also know that we also believe in a foundation of a strong foundation of a Juice Plus capsules, essential fatty acids through the food and or supplement, and vitamin D, because of how it affects the membrane, how it affects oxidative stress and other things. Why, Dr. Bill, does your family, and why do you use that in your pediatric practice?
Well, we do. I've been taking my daily Juice Plus shake for 25 years.
Yeah, longer than me.
The reason, and it's especially when you're healing from cancer. And
Yeah.
here's my quick, what supplements to choose, especially when you're healing from any inflammation.
Yeah.
First of all, show me the necessity.
Yeah.
Do I eat 10 fistfuls of fruits and vegetables every day? I need to. No, I don't. Okay, you don't eat it, but you need it, therefore you take it.
Yeah.
Do you eat 2 fistfuls of wild salmon every week to strengthen your cell membranes, etc.? I don't like fish, Dr. Bill. I'm a vegan. You don't eat it. You need it, therefore you take it. Yeah. So this is why I take the Juice Plus fruit, veggies, berries, and omega blend every day. Now, the reason also, as a doctor, I'm a show me the science type of doctor. I'm not going to put anything in my mouth, prescribe it for my patients or family that's not backed up with solid science. Juice Plus has 47 studies and counting. And my favorite one, Valerie, is what we call the bioavailability study, because you want to know what's in the capsule. Does that get into your blood?
Right.
Yes. So that's the first question you ask before you take any supplement. Have they tested what's in the capsule, given eaters the capsule, and then tested their blood, taken blood from them to show what's in the capsule gets into the blood? Yes, Juice Plus did that study. And the eaters had higher blood levels of the nutrients that were in the capsule. So that's why I'm a medical advisor for the Juice Plus company, the greatest company of integrity I've ever had the privilege of being an advisor for. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, well, thank you. Because sometimes people are, you know, a little confused by so many different things, and they're always asking me and a lot of people here, you know, what to take. And I think, you know, it falls into also, besides the science, as well as the human bioavailability and medical peer-reviewed data in humans, is that contamination free again. You know, one of the things I always say, right, is we want contaminant free. It's not just about organic when it's been broken down, it's contaminant free, right?
Yes.
So that's very important. And that's where that NSF standard comes in, that it's looked at after it's manufactured for contaminants and pesticides and herbicides and all those things. So it's
that's what that NSF stands for. And in fact, one of the things I learned at the conference, Valerie, was glyphosate. Actually, when you partner that with GMO foods, it's a double naughty list.
Yeah.
So non-GMO certified by NSF. Wow.
Yeah,
put
it's a
on.
big deal. It's a big deal, right?
Big deal.
It's a big deal. Yeah. Yeah. The more things you get to control, right, and partner up for your own body, the better and happier we feel when we can't always predict or control what's outside. We know the clean foods and avoiding the processed colors and shakes and different things that have the extra sugars. The fiber is another thing that often we don't talk about at all, which always amazes me. As you know, to detoxify properly, you need that 25 to 35 grams of fiber or more. Some people say 35 to 50 or even 55, depending on your body size. And you got to get that through the whole foods again, right?
That's right.
That's where the smoothies, I just find the reason I've been doing smoothies since I was 15. And it was the only way I could figure out, even when I was young, how do you get a lot of nutrition in, no matter what goes on during the day? So I've been a smoothie person forever, just about. So it's great that you went over some of that. So I really appreciate that, and obviously, hopefully you become more aware today, but you also want to make sure a few other things, right? To reduce your exposure when you can. Now, Dr. Bill, one of the things that you said that I think is important is, when you found out the golf course that was being sprayed, you quit golfing temporarily, but you did then bring it to their attention, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they quit using it.
Yeah. So if you're not even aware, we didn't say you have to quit golfing forever. Hopefully you can find golf courses in places where, again, or someone willing, as Dr. Bill's was, to not just be aware of the exposure, find the exposure, reduce it and get rid of it, and still be able to be out in nature and exercise, which is just, again, a double beautiful mind producing event. So we're glad about that. And you've got to be very careful what you put on your skin. The less on your skin, the better. And we won't even go into that today. That's a whole nother lecture, but just be aware again that you want to be reading labels and be aware of that. I always say use a water filter when you can. And a lot of times we get a lot of questions. I don't know if you do on this, Dr. Bill, but I just tell people, even when we moved in, we test the water, then got a water filter to match the water, because every city, every town is different, whether it's city, whether you're in a city. And that's the best recommendation. And, Dr. Bill has great resources in his book. I often recommend my tapscore.com. It's just a wonderful place that is a very readable report if you're concerned about the water. And then you can test your glyphosate. It's a very simple urine collection, and it's a very simple thing to look at. And of course, then we want to be aware of reducing those exposures. And there are some other things you can do if necessary outside of diet. And we're not going to get into those today. And those are very specific for each person. Just as Dr. Bill said, when he partnered with the right oncologist, he found the right treatment with the least side effects that fit his lifestyle and his body. And the one thing I do want to say when we talk about any kind of condition or disease or a high level of glyphosate, let's just say, it takes time and consistency. As Dr. Bill said, right, we get to have new tissues and cells. So we want to treat it right. And it's always the consistency rules. I found that even when I was working with patients for a long time, I always used to say people in the military, people that were in some kind of a professional athlete, they tend to always be having some kind of exercise they've done their whole life. It doesn't mean they're in the gym 2 hours. It means they've done consistent movement their whole life, Bill, and I'm sure you've seen that too. And if you get discouraged by any of your toxic levels or anything like that, again, it takes 1 to 2 years sometimes to get those levels down if you don't know the exact exposure. Or sometimes, like with Dr. Bill, we knew it was the golf course because he figured that out with a lot of help from a lot of people and insight. And one of the things that happen is sometimes when we get somebody that has glyphosate, just so you know, it's that it may have been accumulating, as Dr. Bill said, over the years, repeated exposures. And those are some of the things that we, just to be aware of, that sometimes it could take a few years to change those pesticides and herbicides. Now, if you're not familiar with the Tower Garden, these are examples of the Flex and the Home Tower Garden that whoever invited you tonight can tell you more about. But I am a big advocate, and I am not a good grower. I don't have a green thumb. I don't own any plants. I'm sad to say I have fake plants because I am just not good at it. And I do grow the flax in my office in Illinois. And my son at age 15 encouraged me to get one because of what I had taught him. So I learned. And then when he went to college, I learned how to use it. And then I have the home right next to my refrigerator, Dr. Bill,
Oh,
so
wow.
there's a lot of options right there.
Good for you. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, we love the sound. We love the light. Neighbors always ask, what is that in your window? So it's just
and it was invented at Disney World.
yes, how fun, right? I mean, again, positivity, right? I mean, you just see how all of that works together. But part of the reason for the Tower Garden is, besides the nutrition density, is that we know that we're conserving water and space and the yield, but the key again to me is part of this. This is why I really feel strongly is when we look at the Dirty Dozen, EWG environmentalworkinggroup.org is a free site that is non-biased, or they try to be non-biased, and they're not backed by companies. And they publish a list every year of the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. And you can see the Dirty Dozen, most of these can be grown on the Tower Garden. And the ones that can't, you really want to make sure you are buying organic. And when I can't buy organic, sometimes in our small store, we can't get organic apples sometimes, especially during when we had COVID, I would peel the apples or use baking soda and water. And there's different techniques you can use to clean it. But certainly you can grow most of these on the Tower Garden, which is awfully nice, especially the greens, right, Dr. Bill? I mean, that are in that smoothie.
Oh yeah, we're green. I love it.
Yeah.
And as soon as we finish, I'm going to go have my salad, my big green salad.
There you go. That's what I had before our lecture. We're a little 3 hours ahead of you. And then the Clean 15 is another helpful list that you can get that will show you each year what foods are safer that tend to not hold as much pesticides and herbicides, right, Dr. Bill?
Yes, and in fact, one of the reasons that years ago we put in our books to make avocados the first food you feed your babies. Yep. And look at it, it's the #1 on the Clean 15 list.
I know it, love it, right? We need those good fats for our brain and our membranes, As Dr. Bill, if you haven't seen Dr. Bill and seen his book, we're going to show you in a minute, we're fat heads, right? So again, it could be good things. So the Clean 15 is very helpful. So AskDrSears.com is a fabulous website, and you want to talk just a little bit about this guide because it's a wonderful.
Yes, we have throughout our website, we have little what we call posties that you can download free, put them all over your home, your workplace, give them to your friends. And this is on the Conquer Cancer Guide. It goes through everything we talked about in the talk today. And we have about 30 other little posties that you can put all over, move more, sit less, live longer, that type of thing. And hand them to your friends, enjoy them.
Inspiring and helpful and positive again, which we all need those reminders. And I mentioned, the new book coming out, Help Heal Yourself from Cancer, and the donations going there. And the Healthy Brain book is a fabulous book. Also, all your books are good. I'm sorry, all of them. I like I said, each time I read the next one, it becomes my new favorite. So even Primetime Health, I love it. And Primetime Health, I've read many times. It's a fabulous book. It just reminds us all why we're doing the things we're doing, So like he said, I love the Build Your Conquer Cancer Library, right? I mean, good resources that are positive and helpful and specific. So, thank you, Dr. Bill, for doing all these works for years. We're going to do a part 2. There's a lot of other information in the book, November 17th, because we want to give you time to get the resources, go to drsears.com, talk to the person that invited you. You're going to need time to absorb the information we've shared tonight. You might get your glyphosate tested. You might want to be looking at the Dirty Dozen. You might want to test your water. You might want to start looking at your labels of even your yogurts at home and making sure they don't have fake ingredients in them. So we will do this one November 17th on Thursday night. We were trying to do a different night because we know sometimes people have things on the same night. So we try to make it a different night. And we'll be talking more about living ways to, to live clean, ways to talk to your healthcare specialist. So you're partnering again, as Dr. Sears So, helped us understand. And then again, the difference with standardized care and personalized treatments. And of course, sharing more of their stories, which are just heartwarming in the book. I mean, just really helpful again, because, when you live something, I think people understand again why you're not just passionate about it from your profession, but how it's affected you and your family and your loved ones. Yeah. So we so appreciate you, Dr. Sears, for taking the time and working with us to help us become more aware. We're going to take questions, but we do want to make sure that we know that we're about 5 minutes over. So we went about 1 hour and 5. We did pretty darn good for a lot of good detailed information I hope you found. So if you need to leave, please feel free to leave. We understand. But Dr. Bill did say, do you have a few minutes to take a few questions?
Yes, Valerie.
Okay.
There's one little take-home point I want.
Yes.
I want you all that have listened to Valerie and myself tonight, I want you to drift off to sleep tonight with what I call the helper's high.
Yeah. The
helper's high is why we go into medicine, we doctors. The helper's high means you feel good by doing good. So share this video with as many friends as you can to prevent and help them heal from cancer, and enjoy a high dose of the helper's high.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bill. We appreciate that. Would you like me to do the questions on the recording, or would you like me to stop it? Do you have a preference?
No, I think questions are fine. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So if anyone has a question, please unmute yourself. The water site was yep, someone write it up there. Thank you, Angie. She's a part of my staff, mytapscore.com. But go ahead. Any questions for Dr. Bill or myself?
I have a question.
Okay.
First of all, how do we obtain the video recording?
Okay. All right. So whoever invited you tonight, make sure you let them know. I'll send it out in an email. How did you find your way here, Carrie?
Voxer.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so we'll make sure we get that out to the leaders here, and then whoever's team you're on, or Voxer advertisement, make sure you go back to where that was posted, and we'll make sure we get you the recording.
Thank you. And the question I have for Dr. Bill is, it's more along the lines of your book on the brain health. And I'm so concerned about the breakdown in our society and what's happening around us. And I was just wondering, Dr. Bill, how much of it can be contributed to poor nutrition and poor brain health?
Well, Carrie, that's the #1 question we doctors get. And that's the reason we wrote the book, The Healthy Brain Book. And because the brain, above every other organ, is the organ most vulnerable to nutrition, for better or worse. And the reason is because the brain, Carrie, is mostly fat. The way I get the kids to remember that, I call them fatheads. Okay, you're a fathead, I'm a fathead. And fat is the #1 tissue most vulnerable to toxins. So that's why one of the main reasons we have such a brain problem right now is because of too much toxins getting into our brain. Secondly, the brain, every organ of the body is only as healthy as the blood flow to it. The brain uses 20% of the blood flow the heart pumps out, even though it has 1% of the whole body weight. So movement makes more blood flow to your brain. So we sit too much, exposed to too much toxins, and that's why we have the highest epidemic of brain illnesses in history. But the good news is we can correct that by eating smarter, breathing smarter, moving more, staying away from toxins, and all the things we talked about. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bill. Go ahead, Sandra.
Thank you, Dr. Sears. I just had a question about glyphosate. You said that you stayed off the golf course for 3 months and the glyphosate came out of your system. Does that naturally go out if you stay away from it, or do you actually have to do something? Because I used to be a pesticide applicator, so I'm curious for myself. Thank you.
Mhm. Well, Valerie might be able to answer that better because for me, just staying away from it, staying away from the source was enough. But probably some people need chelation or whatever there is. I'm not aware of how they would do it, but I think what's really important is, and I heard rumors that this was happening, that there actually is an organization of moms against glyphosate. And if you want to make a change, moms are the ones who are going to make it.
Yeah.
So I'm enthused about our future. Maybe Valerie can comment on is a chelation something you would go to?
Yeah, sometimes I don't usually have to use chelation. What's nice about most of the time when people at least come to me, they are wanting to do all the pieces. So people that do the nutrition, the smoothies, those type of things do very well sometimes where we don't have to do anything, or we can do something very light, like a certain form of glutathione. Other people, however, sometimes where there's been an accumulation that they said they've got conditions where there's been a diagnosis for a long time, often those are stuck in the tissues and they do need a variety of different things, and it's very individualized. And some people take 2 years to come out, especially when there's been a longer term exposure. The person that you mentioned in your book, Dr. Sears, used to spray their hands with glyphosate and then pull weeds. So there was a long-term inner, it was in the tissues. It wasn't a new big exposure. And also that person grew up where there wasn't as much good nutrition. So there's been many years of accumulation, like you said, just like with pediatrics. So that's where it really depends, Sandra. That's why I prefer to measure, and then you choose, like Dr. Sears did, to absolutely find the cause, see if it went down. And if it hadn't gone down, Dr. Sears, you would have been willing to do something about it. I know that, we talk
I call my favorite toxicologist and say, Valerie, help.
Yes, so we were very happy that we didn't have to do other lengths. Yeah, so that was wonderful. So it's a good question.
Thank you very much.
Good question. Yeah. Anybody else? And if I don't see you, just unmute yourself and say hello and say your name and where you're from.
This is Gay Russell.
Okay.
There. Yes, I would just love to be able to help others know about something that you clarified for me. I have a 2-year-old granddaughter who did not like fish or avocado. And so I asked you, could I give her, she loves the Juice Plus Omegas, the plant-based omegas. She eats the capsule. She bites off the capsule and just chews up the whole capsule. And after 2, she'll say, more, please. So is that enough to carry her? And if it is, I just wanted other people to know about that.
Yes, and what sets Juice Plus apart is the capsule is made with the new technology that's fabulous. And you if you go on the website, they'll explain to you how to do that. And one thing, this is rather new. In my office, in our office, we measure the omega-3 index.
Yeah.
Because the key to taking nutrients is not what you put in your mouth that counts, it's what you absorb through your gut that matters. And you may be a high absorber, Gay, or you may be a low absorber, and your grandson too. So a little 1 drop of blood, a finger stick, a painless, called omega-3 index. And how to do it is in our cancer book and in our brain health book. And it needs to be above 8%. And also it's a motivator to show the parents that, little Johnny came back at 5%, maybe you ought to give him more brain food here. So measure it.
Yeah.
And actually we measure vitamin D levels.
Yep.
That they need to be above 50. The old figure you get of 30 is too low. Above 50, preferably 60 for women, older women. The over 60 have much lower incidence of breast cancer. So you can do a vitamin D and omega-3 index with 2 drops of blood.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know Gay, you've done it yourself, so you know, and I've been using it for 20 years. It's been wonderful that the technology has come down where it's one drop and it's very easy to do. And so it also helps you, Dr. Bill, one of the reasons I love the Omega Index also as the dietitian is there's a page that shows every essential fatty acid in your blood.
Yeah.
And it can tell someone if they're eating too much saturated fats, you know, if you're that gorger, George, or, you know, you're not. So sometimes secrets come out where it's like, well, maybe those donuts every Friday are hurting you, you know? And so there's a lot of helpful information in all those. So that's really great. So thank you, Gabe, for asking that. And it's really nice too, to know that you can do that, right? With young children and infants, especially when sometimes their taste, they won't accept something or eat things for a while. So very important. Yeah. All right. We'll take one more question. If there's anyone else, we'll do one more and then we will thank Dr. Bill and everybody here for being here and being part of our positive community. Anyone else? Okay. Well, let's give
This
Dr.
is
Bill.
Colette. Can I?
Okay.
I just have a specific question about the leukemia. When you were diagnosed, I know you said that you were taking a low dose medication, but and I know that you were already on a healthy diet and a good regimen and everything. Did you do something else special in particular along with that?
No, I did everything we talked about there, Colette. But see, dosing for cancer is very, very personalized. And in our November 17th talk,
Yes.
we're going to talk about some fabulous breakthroughs
Yeah.
and questions to ask your oncologist and
Yeah.
stories that I have from our family, whereby asking the right questions got us the right chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So yes, there's a whole lot of new good things going on called targeted therapy
Mhm.
and immunotherapy, where you can take medicines that prompt your immune system to go get those cancer cells. And we'll talk about those on the November 17th one.
Yeah.
Okay,
And part of
thanks.
that's, yeah, thank you, Colette. That part of the reason why we wanted to separate it is, again, we want to make sure you have all the pieces that you can start doing now to also stay healthy, or whether someone has cancer, and build on that information. As Dr. Sears likes to say, we want some time to implement, ponder, pause, implement, get out there in sunshine and be active. So we thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you.
Bill Sears. We just
Thank you,
adore you, and you're a wonderful person that gives to all of us. So we appreciate. Let's give Dr. Bill a hand. Yes, we
Thank
really
you.
Thank you so
spend your
much.
time
Thank
with
you. Thank you
anyone.
all.
Thank
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 Dr.
you for
Bill.
spending your time with us.
Appreciate all the
Well,
information.
Awesome
Thank
time.
you, everybody.
Yes.
All right.
Excellent.
I will
you.
Excellent call.
stop
Thank you.
that recording, and everybody have a wonderful night.